Now, in other news, some senior SABC staffers were paid millions of rand after their contracts were terminated. This emerged during testimony at the State Capture Commission today. On the stand was Human Resources Head Jonathan Tekiso. The Commission has set aside this week to investigate what led to the parlous financial situation at the public broadcaster. On Tuesday, the Zondo Commission heard of ongoing editorial interference at the SABC. For more on the state capture inquiry, we crossed to our reporter Manqoba Uno in Parktown. He's been following proceedings there. So Manqoba, we heard from current executives at the SABC. Is the former group CEO still on the stand? What's happening?
Well, certainly, Francis, the former CEO, Lulama Mokhobo, really detailing some of those irregular contracts between the SABC as well as the Gupta companies, being the New Age. You recall, of course, that they had two sort of agreements with the TNA, one of them being the TNA, the controversial TNA breakfast shows, which were hosted by Morning Live. And, of course, we do understand at this point that that particular venture had costed the SABC over 20 million rand of revenue. So really one of those big contracts where the Guptas seemingly had benefited from the use of SABC resources. Of course, even yesterday we heard testimony from the Chief Financial Officer of the SABC indicating that the production costs alone of this particular venture amounted to about 4 million rand. And of course, we do know that the SABC benefited nothing from this deal, not even a cent. So this is one of the contracts that she's been dealing with, and saying that, of course, when she arrived there as the CEO, she found that there was no contract that had been drawn up between the New Age as well as the SABC at that time. But interestingly, Francis, before we get into more details about these contracts, she also revealed that, she had met the Gupta brothers. And she says that, at just a week after appointment as CEO of the SABC, she was taken to the Gupta compound in Saxonwold by Mr. Hlaudi Motsweneng, who was the then Chief Operations Officer at the SABC at the time, where she was introduced to the Gupta brothers. But there were more people there. There was also Tutuzane Zuma, as well as Mahashule's son, Tsepiso, who were part of the people who were meant to congratulate her. Let's take a listen to what she had to say about this.
After I was appointed, and it was something quite strange, I was Hlaudi Motsweneng, who was acting COO, came to my office and said, I have to take you somewhere very quickly. And he wouldn't tell me where it was. It was all very hush-hush. And we arrived at this massive house, and I saw on the wall Sahara computers. And he said, well, we are here because these people want to congratulate you. So I went in together with Hlaudi. I do recall that my phone and everybody else's phone was taken and the battery was removed. And we were led into a dining room where the people who were present proceeded to congratulate me.
And who were those people who congratulated you?
I seem to recall that there was I think it was AJ Gupta, if I'm not mistaken. Atul Gupta, I think he was there as well. Tutuzane Zuma, and Mr. Mahashule's son, can't remember his name. And then there was Hlaudi and myself. If there were other people, I really can't quite recall them, because this was a while ago. And we sat at the table, there was a bit of food, and they congratulated me and promptly told me that they would have liked to play a role in SABC's DTT future, because they were interested in creating a news channel, and that they would hope that I would allow them or enable them to get access to a channel. And at that point I said to them, look, I do not believe that it would be easy to just give anybody a channel. I'm quite sure that there would have to be a proper tender process and a number of it would be opened up, and we expect that a number of people would apply also to be part of the DTT network of the SABC when it did come about. And really there was nothing further to discuss, and they said congratulations, and that was the end of it.
Well, certainly, Francis, that was the evidence with relations to this point. But of course, she also went into detail about the particular contract, saying that, at the time, as we've heard, of course, that millions went into this project. She says that the reason why the SABC didn't see it fit to charge the Guptas for this TNA breakfast briefing show is because they believe that, according to the SABC's editorial policy, the SABC news doesn't pay for content, or it doesn't get payment from businesses for its news, and therefore they saw it that it was fit for the Guptas not to pay for this service, because in effect it would have gone against the public broadcaster's editorial policy. But of course she also says that with regards to the other issue of the New Age newspapers that were distributed to the SABC, of course yesterday we heard that that alone took about 900,000 rand from the SABC coffers. And of course she says at the time she was not even aware that this was going. In fact, she was not even aware of an agreement that had been there between the New Age as well as the SABC on the supply of this New Age newspapers to the SABC. And of course she says she was quite taken aback by this seemingly agreement that she didn't know about as the chief accounting officer at the time.
Let's just talk about the New Age breakfast. There's a lot of interest in that, and she did say that the SABC was not paid for covering those business briefings. So there was some news content there, but she seemed very surprised that the New Age was being paid. So they were profiting from those breakfasts, Manqoba.
Indeed, Francis, and then I think that's a strange thing about this. I mean, you have the SABC carrying the cost of production, which run into millions of rand, and doing it for free. Basically at the benefit of the Gupta company, and that's a relationship that's been, and the agreements that are being called into question. The fact that there was no contract to begin with between the two entities, and that this is one of the things that she had to appoint or to look into when she came into position. So there are many alarms around this issue of the Guptas and the TNA relationship. Of course, I think the big question is why was the SABC not benefiting anything? But of course, Lula Mamukhobo saying that at the time, she was informed that this was merely, sort of a program that allowed government to speak to its people, to inform them and to educate them on what it is that government is doing for the people. And therefore, this is one of the reasons. The second, of course, being the fact that she says the SABC does not take any money for its news coverage. And so she says these were solid reasons she believed that, they didn't charge the Guptas at all for this venture.
And Mchunu, following the state capture inquiry, and we have the former group CEO on the stand.